In this program, we're going to look at the do-while loop, and one of the common uses of the do-while loop is to create a menu structure. So before we do that, let's just look at the structure of the do-while loop. So I've got my basic program set up here, and I'm just going to put a comment that says do-while loop used for menu generation in this case. And the do-while loop always starts with a do and a bracket, and of course it always ends with a bracket, so I always put my two brackets in at the same time. Then the while goes at the end of this loop, and we still have a set of round brackets that hold the condition under which that loop will repeat. The difference between the while and the do-while loop is that the do-while loop has a semicolon after the condition. Okay, it's one of the few cases where we have a structure with a semicolon at the end. So I'm going to make a variable, and my variable is going to be a character that I've got from the user. So I'm going to call it user input. Okay, and I'm not going to give it a value because the user is going to give that variable a value. The key thing about the do-while loop is that the do-while loop runs at least once and then checks the condition at the end to decide if it should repeat again. So within this do-while loop, I'm going to print out my menu because I want my menu to be displayed at least once so that the user can pick an option. So I'll say option 1, say hello, and I need a semicolon after that line. I'm going to say option 2 is say goodbye, and option 3 is going to be to quit. Option And actually, I'm going to change, and that should be a semicolon, not a colon. I'm going to change these options because I'm using a character. I'm going to change these to option A, option B, and option C. So we want to keep repeating this loop as long as it's not option C. So I've printed out the 3 options for the user, but I also have to wait for the user to enter that value of user input. Once user input has a value, then I can check it and say, okay, is user input not equal to C? Because if it's not C, I'm going to repeat the loop. So remember, the condition I want to put in these brackets is the condition for which I will repeat the loop. So, and notice that because C is a character, I have to put it in single quotes. Okay, so this program should print the menu, wait for our input, and then depending on our input, it'll either repeat the menu again or stop. Okay, so we do have option A, B, and C. I'm going to enter A just to see if it repeats, and it does. I'm going to enter option B, and it should repeat, and it does. And when I enter option C, that condition that we had there, which said while user input not equal to C, that's going to become false if this is C. Okay, so once I enter C, the program stops and it says press any key to continue. Now, of course, I don't like the way that menu is displayed. I wanted those things to be on separate lines, and so I'm going to fix that. I'm also going to fix this indenting. I do want everything to be indented so that I can see what is within the while loop, but I would like them all to be in line like that. And I'm just going to add some endls to the end. And I'm going to add another line just to make it look better, which says enter your choice. And I don't need an endl after that one because that's where they're going to enter their choice. And then the program is going to save that into user input. Okay, so let's test that. Okay, so now it looks a little bit better, and if I enter A, it repeats. If I enter B, if it repeats. If I enter C, it quits, which is great. That's what I want it to do. The other thing that it would be nice if it did is before it displays the menu, if it cleared the screen, that would be nice. So I'm going to do a system CLS and clear the screen each time. Okay, now let's see. I enter A, clears the screen. I enter B, clears the screen. I enter C, it just quits. Okay, so that was a useful way to use a do while loop to create a menu. The only thing we might want to add is that our menu doesn't actually do anything. So it's important to note that whatever I want the menu to do, I want to happen each time the user picks an option. So those things must still go within that do while loop. So once I get the user input within the do while loop, I could use a switch structure to decide what to do for each of those cases. And the thing to remember about a switch structure is you're using a switch structure when you're only looking at one condition, but it could have multiple possible values. So I'm going to put a switch in here, and it starts with the word switch, and then in brackets you've got the variable that it's going to look at. I'm going to fill that in after. I need an open bracket, and then at the very end it's going to have a closed bracket. So again, I'm always putting my open and close brackets in at the same time. I also need to add the cases. And the cases are the possible values of the value. So let's go back up and put what it is that we're checking. And we're checking user input, the variable user input. So the possible values of user input, it could be A, and I have to put that in single quotes because it's a character. Then I'm going to put a colon, and I'm going to put the word break and a semicolon. Okay, then I'm going to put my next case, and the next possible value is it could possibly be a B, and I'm going to put a break with a semicolon. The next possible value, it could be a C, colon, and a break with a semicolon. And then I've got the default case. So what if they didn't enter A, B, or C? What if they entered something silly like Z? I would want to let the user know that they didn't enter something proper. That would happen in my default case. So here's my basic switch structure. I have the variable or condition that I'm looking at, and I have all the possible values that could have. In these cases, they're in single quotes because it's a character variable and it's holding a character. Now, in between the case and the break, that's where I put whatever I want to do in that case. So in case A, I'm going to see out, I'll put a new line, and then I'll see out hello, because case A was to say hello. Okay. Case B was to say goodbye. I'm going to say goodbye. Case C was to quit, so we don't actually have to do anything there. The program is just going to quit. But you could write a statement there that says, and the only reason the program is quitting is because we don't have anything after our while loop, right? Otherwise it would just do whatever was after the while loop. But we are going to write you have chosen to quit. Okay, and then the default case, notice that the default case doesn't get the word break. It doesn't need it because it's at the end of the structure. We will put just a message that says, please enter a valid option, or that option is not valid. And then when they press that option is not valid. Okay, now if I just run this the way it is, it's going to display these, but then it is quickly going to either repeat the loop or stop the loop, and we may not have the option to see them. So I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, there's my menu. So I'm going to choose A to say hello. Notice it said hello really quickly and then printed the menu again. So what I need before checking the while loop condition, but after my switch, is I need another system pause so that we can actually see what the program has done. Now when I run it, if I press A, I get hello. Press any key to continue. If I choose B, I get goodbye. Press any key to continue. That's coming from the system pause. If I enter something silly like Z, I get that option is not valid. And if I enter C, I get you have chosen to quit. We have another system pause at the end of the program. That's why we had that twice. And then the program stops. So the only thing I might add is before this system pause, put a couple of end lines to put it on a new line, so it's not right in a row like that. So A is hello, B is goodbye, X is not valid, and C allows us to quit. The only other thing that I want to demonstrate to you with this program is with the switch statement. Without these breaks, the program would just keep reading down until it came across a break. So suppose that I wanted to say goodbye whether the user entered little b or big B, capital B. So I could add another case for capital B, okay? But notice I put it right after the little b, and there's no break in this little b case like we normally would have. So if the program gets a little b, it's going to start at this case and run to the break, just ignoring this line, and it's still going to say goodbye. If it gets big B, it's going to start at this line and run until it gets the break. So that's a useful way to have multiple cases do the same thing without having to write that thing out multiple times. So now if I enter capital B, it says goodbye. If I enter little b, it says goodbye. Okay, and then I'll quit. If you made a mistake, and suppose you forgot this break, then case B and B would do both B and C's things. C would just do C's things. So watch what happens there. If I enter B, it says goodbye, you have chosen to quit. So in essence, it has started here, ignores that line, runs this line, ignores that line, runs this line, gets to the break and stops. So that's why it has printed goodbye and you have chosen to quit. But I still only entered a B, so my while loop that says user input not equal to C will continue, will actually loop around again. So I don't actually quit, but that it printed out those two statements because I didn't have the break. Okay, but it didn't actually quit because user input was still not equal to C, and so it repeated. If I now enter C, it'll say you have chosen to quit, and it'll do case C as normal, and it will actually quit because user input is C. Okay, so don't forget to have this break after or at the end of your case statement.